It is an honor for me to be with you today, and I've come to do two or three things. I've come, number one, to thank you. You guys have been a part of our work for a long, long time, and I've come to thank you. So I need everybody's eyes and mine at the same moment, so I can thank you. I think I'm going to give you also a couple of chill bumps today. Is chill bumps allowed here? Are they? I'm going to give you a couple, I think. I'm going to give you some information and excite you, I think, about the future. If I told you that today while we're meeting, the entire world is covered with the gospel of Jesus Christ, would that please anybody in the room? God has told us to go into the entire world and preach the gospel. I don't know you. I'm going to trust you'll tell me the truth if I ask you a question. This means yes, this means no. I'm not trying to be funny. If I ask you a question, will you tell me the truth? If you don't commit, I'll be worried about you. All right, here's your question. Be honest with me as you answer. You and I have heard gospel sermons, and we've read the text all our life about taking the gospel to the entire world. How many of you have ever doubted if we could really get that done? And be honest. And if you don't do this way, you'll lie about some other things. I mean, just think about the task of getting the gospel to the entire world. The number of languages that's out there. There's 1,600 people groups in the world. Just think about the expense. Think about the governments that are opposed to Christianity. There's a lot of obstacles. But how do you and I know that we can preach the gospel to the entire world? Somebody tell me. The Lord told us to do it. He doesn't ask us to do something that we didn't do. In the first century, the gospel was available to everybody. Hadn't been done since until now. I've come to excite you with something we share together as I show you your two antennas, your two sights that today will blanket the entire world with the gospel of Jesus Christ. I want to share with you a picture though. Andy, the gospel has already been available to the entire world. Do y'all ever dim the lights? Would that make that better? Y'all know your building better than I. Let's see if it makes it better. And I welcome your questions anytime during our 3.5 hours together this morning while we're talking. I welcome your questions. Thank you for doing that for me. Andy, the gospel has already been available, had it to the entire world because of the internet. And the answer is no. The map on the screen behind you, and I've got copies for you on the back table if you'd like to have a copy. This is where the internet is, and this is where the internet is not. The lighted areas is where the internet is. And you would expect it to be in America and also Europe. But look at the dark places in the map. Those places are covered with shortwave broadcasting. The dark places in the Atlantic, why wouldn't every country want to have the internet available to their people? Some governments are so opposed to the West, they won't allow the internet into their country. Can you name me two countries? North Korea. Can you think of another one? Communist China, really, really limited. And several of the countries in the Middle East do not allow the internet. The dark places on the map is where the internet is not available, but shortwave broadcasting is. How many in the room have a shortwave radio? I got one. I got two. I'd like to find out why y'all have shortwave, because in America, we don't use short. How many have AM, FM? And every hand goes up, we know what that means. Outside America, everybody uses shortwave radio. There are 3 billion shortwave radios in the world. The only thing that the president of, or whatever his title is, of North Korea, the only thing he can't keep out of his country is a shortwave radio signal. It's not a weird radio, it's just the way it receives the radio signal. An AM station has a transmitter that sends out the signal as far as that transmitter will. Do y'all get WSM every Saturday night, Grand Ole Opry out of Nashville? Do you get it? It's because that transmitter sends it that far. FM kind of goes hill to hill. If you live on the other side of the hill, you might not get that AM station or FM station. Shortwave bounces. It literally bounces all the way around the world. So when you're trying to reach the masses of the world, especially places that are hostile to Christianity, I'm not going to limit God because the Bible says He can raise up rocks to preach the gospel. But from a human perspective, the only way to reach into those particular areas of the world is by the means of a shortwave radio. It all started with this guy. World War II, Roosevelt, at the end of the war, Roosevelt was going to go to the Yalta Conference with Churchill and Stalin. He commissioned a second lieutenant to come up with a way that he could communicate from the other side of the world. The second lieutenant came up with the means of shortwave radio. At the end of the war, that second lieutenant, Brother Maurice Hall. Does anybody know Brother Maurice? I usually don't travel anywhere that people didn't know Maurice Hall. He was the second lieutenant. He's now 97. I got to visit with him in May. He's the one that came up with the idea of shortwave broadcasting. And at the end of the war, he said, wait a minute, we can preach the gospel that way. He began to talk to a guy named Lowell Perry, who taught at Abilene Christian, who was involved in radio work, and he said that idea will work. 37 years later, the first antenna was turned on. Let me bring you greetings from Franklin, Tennessee, the international home of World Christian Broadcasting. All the international staff work out of this building. We don't get up one lesson and do it and have somebody translate it. We've got about 4 Russian Christians, about 4 Chinese Christians, 1 Arabic, 1 Spanish, 1 that speaks Southern English. We'll see if that goes over your head or not. And since January, we've been working on getting Portuguese started. I want to show you the guys that do the programming, but it all takes place here. We do all of our taping in 4 studios in this building. If you ever come down to Nashville, you've got to come by and meet our folks. This is where they do all of their work. I did have a slide here with snow on the ground because I wanted our guys up in Alaska to know we can grow snow too down in Tennessee, but I took it away. Andy, thank you for showing me a picture of a building. I just wanted you to see it's a pretty simple place. Nothing exciting about that building. We only have 3 golden chandeliers hanging in the I'm just kidding. We don't have, I wanted you to see it's just a simple place. But what happens in this place is magical. We produce 7 hours of programming every day. Every language does an hour of programming. And we put it on 2 stations in Alaska that I'm about to show you, and also Madagascar. I welcome your questions as we go along. Don't hesitate to ask me those questions. I've got this map for you as well. It's on the back table. From this map, I want you to see Alaska and Madagascar. The uniqueness of World Christian Broadcasting is we take the gospel where missionaries can't go. Go back 35 years with me. Where could our missionaries not go to preach the gospel? Russia, China, and down the Pacific Rim. So if you notice with me, from Anchor Point, Alaska, take a wild guess what's right across that short body of water. Russia and China and down the Pacific Rim. July 23rd is coming up. I wish you would pause on July 22nd and have a special prayer of thanksgiving. July 23rd is when we went on the air in Alaska 35 years ago. And from Anchor Point, Alaska, we've heard literally from every known country of the world. Every state in Mexico, every state in America, every province in Canada. We've literally heard from every corner of the globe, from the antennas I'm about to show you, that are your antennas in Anchor Point, Alaska. That's why we went to Anchor Point, Alaska. Let me tell you how far west we are. There's a sign about a mile from our station that reads, "Furthest west paved highway in North America." That's how far west we are. Why there? Because it sends a strong signal into Alaska, into Russia, and into China. Here's the guys that do our programming. You don't know any of them. They're not big names in the brotherhood. The main thing that it matters, though, is these guys are great writers and they know how to speak the language. You do not want a guy from Middle Tennessee doing programming into Africa. You don't want a guy from Middle Tennessee doing programming anywhere. That's why we have Ed Short, that's for over 30 years done our Chinese programming. He does Mandarin Chinese. Well, Andy, why Mandarin Chinese? When Mao Zedong was in power, he did 2 things for the advancement of the gospel. He gave everybody in China a shortwave radio. And then he passed a law that said everybody that goes through the school system will learn 1 language, Mandarin Chinese. With those 2 things being true, what can we do over the 1.3 and growing population of China every day? Tell them about Jesus Christ. And that's what's been going on for 35 years out of Alaska. Edit in the bottom left corner has joined our staff in the last year. He does our programming into Africa. He's a native African, and he's doing a great job with us. Constantine's from Russia. He's a Russian physician. Came to America to practice at Vanderbilt. On his way to the office, met Wesley Jones, who taught him about Jesus, baptized him into Christ, and now Constantine just wants to heal the soul of his countrymen and not the body. We think he's still a member of the KGB. We can't get him to deny that he's not a member of the KGB. But he's doing a great job with our Russian programming. How about a question? Are we good so far? Are we good? The guy in the middle is our brand new guy. Homolu is the way you pronounce his name. We had a family give me a check from Iowa to begin Portuguese programming. And we were able to hire Homolu. His home will be still in Brazil. He worked with the guy on the extreme left, F.H. Gates, who was do you know that name? Y'all do not, how do y'all know him? Or you just know the name? Did you? He's a great guy. He was the voice for Churches of Christ in Brazil for many years. We wanted to hire him. He's working with a church in Lebanon, Tennessee, and he said, I just can't leave it, but I got the guy you need to have. And the guy in the center is Homolu. The guy on the right is Rex Morgan. He does our Spanish program for us. And if I have time, I've got some exciting news to tell you about our Spanish work. How about questions about these guys? Yes. Yes, he is. Do you know Rob? He does our English programming, does a great job. These guys know how to write. They know how to speak the language. You want to sound like someone from those countries that's getting our signal, and that's what these guys do. Yes?
What was the reasoning behind picking the languages you did first and then Portuguese later on, since Portuguese has such a large influx in the world as far as the population?
He's got a great question. Why did you choose the languages you did? 35 years ago, the two main places we couldn't send missionaries is Russia and China, so that's why we chose those languages. English, because many places also speak English, so that explains the first three. We then wanted to begin Spanish, which we began Spanish, and then we wanted to make sure from Madagascar we did Arabic. So the next biggest need we felt like was Portuguese. We lacked funding. It's just a matter of funds to be able to hire those folks and do that work. So we were able to do that back in January, and we're going to begin programming very soon of Portuguese programming. I might tease you a little bit. The next one's Korean. I'll tell you more about that one in a minute. Great question. How about another one? Are we good? All right. Let me welcome you to Alaska, station KNLS. K, because we're west of the Mississippi. Barely, we're still in America. NLS, you can't use your own company's name when you broadcast internationally. So we're known in China as the New Life Station, NLS. This was built in 1983. We're about to celebrate our 35th anniversary, and I want to welcome you to Anchor Point, Alaska. Let me start this picture, which is the one that's on the screen right now, so you can kind of take a closer look at it. We built this antenna right here 35 years ago. The tower is 365 feet tall. It's 385 feet across there. This is your antenna. This is your radio station. We get all the programs ready in Franklin. We send it to a server, and then the server sends it to Alaska. And the signal goes out. As the picture is coming around, notice the pattern of the antenna. It's got a certain pattern to it because we can skew the signal 15 degrees 4 times in each direction. You don't move the antenna, but I'm in Russia now, I'm in another part of Russia, and now I'm in China. That's why when you're trying to cover large areas, this is the type of antenna that you want to use. We built this one, put up this tower about 10 years ago, strung the same antenna. What you're looking at there is 6 acres of wire hanging up in the air. If we laid it down on the ground, it would cover 6 acres of ground. Standing up, it sends out a signal of 32 million watts of power. You can stand in front of these antennas when the antennas are on and hold a fluorescent bulb in your hand, and the bulb will glow. We're not sure what it does to your heart, but it'll make a light bulb glow. We put up this antenna, or these two towers, we put this one up in 1983, and we painted it. You notice the tower we put up 10 years ago, we're lighting it instead of painting it. One of our neighbors complained that our lighting was keeping him awake at night. We told him we could solve that with a $10,000 contribution. That's how much it takes to paint a tower. He said, I think I'll just go to Walmart and buy thicker blinds. So that's the way we solved that particular issue. But this is what the antennas look like in Alaska. 6 acres of wire. Is this a little bit bigger than you thought it was going to be? A little bit bigger deal? This is a big, big deal. And it's on the churches of Christ. And nobody else is doing what we're doing. We're covering the world like nobody else is doing it. So it's a pretty unique thing that you're part of. It's more than just a little ministry. It's blanketing the entire world with the good news about Jesus. How about a question? Question about the antennas? Well, I'm glad you asked me. I'll be glad to answer that one. At the base of each tower, there's 3 or 4 concrete wheels stacked on top of each other and cables attached to the antenna and the tower so they won't blow away. In Alaska, we have issues with moose, an occasional black bear, and wind. Not, you'd think, ice. Well, Andy, why wind? It's a curtain. Well, the wind catches in that curtain and lifts it up. And those 4 concrete wheels at the base of each tower keeps it from blowing away. Kevin has seen those towers about 16 inches off the ground. That's how fierce the wind gets in Alaska. Yes?
Is there a reason you chose Alaska over like maybe Hawaii or Guam or other, more in the Pacific Center of this area?
His question is, why did we choose Alaska over Hawaii or Guam or some other place? It was the perfect place to send the strongest signal into Russia and China.
So since that was one of your first areas
Yep. Well, let me back up and I'll tell you a quick story. In 1977, Lowell Perry, Hal Frazier, Ken Ferguson was in a plane in the Caribbean looking for our first antenna site. Our first thought was we'll broadcast in Spanish to Latin America. Well, their plane exploded and they died, 3 of our founders. So then someone came to us and mentioned some land in Alaska. So therefore, the board kind of changed their thinking. We'll go to Russia and China first with the gospel. There was another hand, I think. Yes?
How is it powered?
How is it powered? Homer Electric loves us. We are their number 1 source of $650 a day. Does anybody have that bill? We got $650 a day. Homer Electric loves us, and we've had a great relationship with them all through these years. How about another question?
Do you ever turn that off?
Do we ever turn it off? At the end of the broadcast day, we'll turn down the power that the power that goes to the transmitters. We'll still use it a little bit at the station, but at the end of the broadcast day, we'll do 20 hours every day out of Alaska. And both antennas are on 10 hours each at the same time. So at the end of those 10 hours, we will turn them off. Yeah. Yes?
Can you not use solar up there?
Can we not use solar? Yes, we could. We thought about solar. We thought about wind. It's just too expensive. Just too expensive. Yes? What is the what?
Life expectancy.
What's the life expectancy? The antennas are really, really durable. The one on the right has been up 35 years. The biggest issue with the wind, sometimes the wind will catch in the antenna and will snap those large cables, and the antenna will sag. Well, Andy, what do? You bring it all the way down, repair the cable, and crank it up like a flag. So the antennas are really, really durable. The transmitter we had for that antenna was 35 years old. We were holding it together with duct tape and baling wire because they didn't even make parts for it anymore. So we bought 3, you'll hear a little bit more about that in a minute. We bought 3 transmitters for Madagascar for our 3 antennas. When this one really went bad on us, we concluded to bring one of those 3 to Alaska. So in essence, we've got 2 brand new transmitters that will give us 30, 35 years of life. So infrastructure, we've never been as strong now as we are. We've got a brand new station in Madagascar. We've got practically brand new in Alaska. So it's pretty durable. If we built Alaska, it'd cost about $8 million. The one in Madagascar I'm about to show you is $12 million. You ready for this? It's all paid for. Would you thank the Lord for that blessing? Yes.
Is the transmitter Madagascar going to be able to reach Brazil with the new influx in Portuguese, or are you looking at a new location for her?
His question is, will the transmitter in Madagascar reach Brazil? Yes. We've got the entire world covered. We don't have to build any more transmitters. Yeah. Great questions you're asking. Anything else? We have 4 families. Let me answer this, then I'll get to you. We've got 4 families that take care of our station in Alaska. I'm going to join them next month for 35-year anniversary. I'll be with our guys. We've got 4 families that take care of the station there. Yes, ma'am.
Were you able to buy the land, or are you renting to put them on?
We bought the land. Does any fishermen or fisherwomen that go to Homer for fishing or take Alaska cruises? We bought some land from Norman Lowell. His name is Norman Lowell Smith. Norman Lowell Smith is a renowned Alaskan artist, and he has a studio that just within a mile of our station, and we bought some land from him. He is internationally known with his paintings, and if you ever take a cruise to Alaska, they'll bring you down to his studio. And so we bought land from Lowell, who is a member of the church, did lead singing at the church in Anchor Point. He and his wife homesteaded there in 1950. They homesteaded to that area. A great, great story and a great, great family. Great questions. Anything else? Okay. 10 hours in Mandarin Chinese, 5 hours in Russian, 5 hours in English. Andy, why do you still do Russian? The wall is down. Alaska has 11 time zones. It's a pretty large territory. And if you don't live in the larger cities, shortwave is still the way to reach you with information. We know that poor people listen to us because that's all they can afford is a shortwave radio. We know rich folks listen to us because they know the news that comes out of their country's propaganda. So they listen to shortwave as well. So we do that. That's how we break down the 20 hours. That's our building in Alaska. If you look behind over the truck, you see one of the towers. It's about 100 yards behind this building, and that's where we do our program. This is your station. This is your station in Alaska, in Anchor Point, Alaska. Let me welcome you to Madagascar. There's going to be a spelling test, so you got to pay attention as we go along here. Capital city right there. It's Tana for short. It's a country of about 22 million people. About 7% are Muslim. About 50% is some form of Christianity. The other 43% is your hocus-pocus religions that you would find in a third world country. Andy, why in the world did you choose Madagascar? They had a coup, didn't they? They sure did. Why did you choose Madagascar? The next place we wanted to take the gospel was the Middle East. We've tried to change that part of the world with wars. How have we done? I didn't hear you. We've tried to change that part of the world with politics. How have we done? You and I know what will change the hearts of people that live in that area, the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's why we went to Madagascar. I'm going to show you the map again to show you that it's perfectly positioned. We've got along with the government. In fact, the president that was in power 12 years ago gave us 84 acres of land. Did you hear me? He gave us 84 acres of land. Well, Andy, how in the world did that take place? That's a God story. We believe he was placed in that position just for a time as this. And he gave us 84 acres of land. And we built a $12 million station that you're about to see. See the map. This is why we went to Madagascar. It's perfectly positioned to take the gospel to the Middle East. The 2 red lines is the 1040 window, 10-degree, 40-degree latitude on the map. 97% of the world's unchurched people live between the 2 red lines. 97% of the world's unchurched live between the 2 red lines. Not just in churches of Christ, but in all Western churches, we spend 0.01% of all mission dollars between the 2 red lines. 0.01% of all mission dollars is spent in the place where it needs it the most. That's why we went to Madagascar. It's the perfect place to be to get a good, strong signal into that entire area. One antenna faces east. We blanket Australia. In fact, they get it from both directions. The main reason we wanted to be here with an antenna is to get to India. How many folks live in India? Just 1 billion. And English is a popular second language, so we're pumping English right now into India. In the future, Bengali maybe is a language that we would add. There's a couple of other languages spoken in India, but right now we'll send English into that part. So this antenna is aimed to the east. It blankets all of this area. Get letters out of Japan and New Zealand and the Philippines and that region of the world. The second antenna is aimed directly north. We're able to hit this entire area here of the Middle East with the gospel. You see the arrows continue to go up. The signal doesn't stop at the end of those arrows. That's just the direction the signal goes. So if we want to add any of the languages in Europe, we can add those languages if we would like to choose without building any more antennas. And then we built a third antenna and we blanket Africa. Well, Andy, what languages to use in Africa? There are 10 main languages in Africa, but no more than 10% of the people speak any one of those languages. Swahili is the one that's most popular, but if we did Swahili, 90% of Africa wouldn't understand our message. So since English is such a popular language there, that we're pumping English into Africa. We're hoping on our African website that we can be able to add some of those languages on the website. I'm about to pass to you a picture I'm about to show you. It is from a drone about 400 feet up. And you can see the campus of Madagascar that I'm about to show you here. Let me say one thing before we leave this map. We're also able to bounce the signal right here on the water, bounce the signal over Africa, and blanket South America. That's how we can get Portuguese into Brazil. You mean the signal bounces and you can bounce a signal that far. That's the uniqueness of shortwave. Well, Andy, why don't you use satellite? Well, number one, it's a little expensive. Number two, satellites are getting a little out of orbit. Why don't we just use the free ionosphere that God created and bounce the signal all the way around the world? Well, it would be neat if we had some shortwave receivers. Well, there's just 3 billion shortwave receivers. Would you please say amen? God gave us the ionosphere for a purpose. And I'm glad there was a second lieutenant that came up with the means of shortwave radio to cover the globe with the gospel. How about a question? Are we good? All right. That old man wants to welcome you to Madagascar World Voice. Remember, you can't use your company name when you're broadcasting internationally. So we are known there as Madagascar World Voice. This is the sign out by the road. You can see the main road that goes back into town right there. We do have a paved road in front of our building. There's not many paved roads in Madagascar. But can you tell a woman is a part of this with the flowers? Ladies, I'm going to tell you a story about Nancy Chambers, who's the wife of our main guy, and you won't believe, she's a neat lady. I'll tell you about her in about 5 minutes. Something happened on March the 26th, 2 years ago at 8 o'clock on Saturday night. We had about 100 people gather in our office in Franklin, Tennessee. It was the Saturday before Easter 2 years ago. At 8 o'clock at night was Sunday morning in Madagascar. Over Skype, we got to watch them turn on the signal in Madagascar. There was much weeping that night by the 100 folks that was there. When Nancy, over her, she was the one that was operating the Skype, she said, we're broadcasting. From that moment on, the entire world's been covered with the good news about Jesus. Have you had a chill bump yet? That night was very, very special. That night we began covering the entire globe with the gospel. It was a very, very special time. Those are the guys that built our station. They make $1 a day. And they work at 105 heat. They're pretty special folks. They did a great job in building what I'm about to show you. That's the picture that's coming around. It's a picture from a drone about 400 feet up. Right there's one antenna. Tower, and there's a second antenna. And there's one, that's the antenna that goes to the west. There's a curtain antenna right here between these two towers. That's the one that goes north to the Middle East. Here, there's a curtain right there in between those two towers. That's the one that goes to India and Australia. You can kind of see the terrain of the country. It's really, really dry. One of the main issues we have there is not wind, although we built the same way that we did in Alaska, because you do have typhoons and cyclones. We've already had 2 100-mile-per-hour cyclones hit our station. And guess what happened? Nothing. Lord had a hand in that, I'll bet you. But you can tell by the terrain, what other issue would we have that's a major issue? Fire. It's so hot and dry and humid there, fires start up just like that. So they've got some things that they've taken care of. There's things that Kevin has done on site to try to interfere with fires that do arise. And we've had 2 or 3 fires already, and you can tell just how dry it is that would really be a concern. How about a question about the antennas? Yes, sir. Question, if you had much vandalism, the answer is no. While we were building the station in Madagascar, we did have some materials stored in the town at a storage building. Some folks got access and they did steal about $10,000 worth of stuff. It wasn't aimed at us. They just broke into a warehouse and went, oh, look what we found. We've been very, very fortunate. We've got a fence around both facilities. We've got 1.5 miles of fence around the one in Madagascar. Why'd you build them? I'm coming to that. I got a picture of it, and I'll save that story for there. How about another question? Yes, sir.
Do you have to keep them cool then, those towers?
Do we have to do what?
You have to cool them.
Yes, yes. The transmitters have to be in a cool room, and it's good and cool there. Yes, sir.
Is it water cool or is it?
Water cooled, yes. 2 hours in Spanish, 3 hours in English for Africa, 2 hours in Russian, 3 hours in Mandarin Chinese, 2 hours in English, 3 hours in Arabic every day. 15 hours a day coming from our station in Madagascar. At the bottom is something about Voice of Hope. Voice of Hope is a brand new AM radio station that was licensed in Israel. That just doesn't happen. Their antennas they got a pretty neat address. They broadcast from the shores of the Sea of Galilee. That's a pretty neat address to broadcast from. They heard our Arabic programming. They asked permission if they could play our Arabic programming 2 hours a day free. How long did it take us to make that decision? They blanket Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, Cyprus, Egypt, and Syria with a good, strong signal. That opens up the gospel to another audience for us. So we are tickled to have that relationship with Voice of Hope. Don't you love their address? Banks of the Sea of Galilee. And therefore, we've got 5 hours of Arabic programming blanketing the Middle East every day. I see several smiles. That's good news, isn't it? Tonight, when you put your head on the pillow, you can smile. Because some little girl, for the first time in her life, heard the sweet name of Jesus. In the future, we're going to get to be the tsunami warning system for the entire world. Is that a good thing or bad thing? It's a good thing. We'll be able to help folks with some weather situation, but the governments have to give out our frequencies. And we'll have folks tuning in and trying to get a little weather, and instead of the weather, what will they get? The sweet name of Jesus. Did you have another chill bump? This thing is God's work. There's no way that human beings could pull this together. This thing is totally from God. You see the buildings? I'm about to show you the buildings that we built at this $12 million campus. There's our front door. Got 2 gates there. We'll open up one. If we don't like how you look, we'll not open the other one. That's our front door. We do have it guarded. They do not have guns, but we do have personnel at 2 different sites on our campus there to provide security for us. Built 1.5 miles of fence. Why in the world you build 1.5 miles of fence? They got a real loose squatter right rule in Madagascar. If you squat in front of something about 20 minutes, it's yours. We didn't want people squatting in front of the antennas and claiming that is home. So we built 1.5 miles of fence around the property. There's the antennas. 4 towers and 3 antennas. If you could read Malagasy, that says welcome. I'm going to take you to the dedication we had 2 years ago. I'm going to take you into this building right here, the transmitter building. This is a building, this picture was taken early on before the greenery got real thick Why would you want to plant greenery up against your building? It's 105-degree heat. I'll show you the next. We built a generator building. You ask about electricity. We do our own electricity in Madagascar. We got, by diesel fuel, operates the generators. In Madagascar, the electricity lasts till about 9 o'clock in the morning, and then after that, it's not reliable. So we spend $650 a day in Alaska, and we spend $650 a day in Madagascar for diesel fuel. We'll take you in that transmitter building. Now the greenery is a little thicker. I'm still going to take you into that building right through that door. I've turned you around. That's through the front door of this building. This guy right here in the white shirt is Kevin Chambers. He built everything I'm about to show you. He built the second antenna in Alaska. He is internationally known among the shortwave industry people. Kevin Chambers is a godsend and a tremendous asset to our work. This lady right here in the pink is his wife, Nancy. Ladies, I want to tell you about Nancy. She's a pioneer woman. She birthed 2 boys in a one-room cabin in Alaska where they lived for 2 or 3 years without running water. The first time I was in their home, in their log home that Kevin built, we're sitting in the bay window looking out at her beautiful, beautiful flowers. She jumps up from the table and looks out at her flowers and said, "Magpie, magpie." There were 2 magpie birds eating her flowers. She walked back in the back bedroom, walked back through with a shotgun, walked out on the deck, and dropped those birds. At Christmas, I saw Nancy, and I said, "Nancy, I tell that story everywhere I go." And she said, "Oh, no, don't tell that story. I think it's against the law to kill magpie birds, so I'll change my story." She killed 2 birds, all right? That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Nancy's a pioneer woman, but she's also master violinist for the Alaska Symphony Orchestra. You ladies would love Nancy Chambers. She's a neat, neat lady. And she is a pioneer woman, but she can play a mean fiddle. And she'd get me if I called it, she heard me say it was a fiddle. It is a violin. I'm about to turn you around, and we're going to go up the steps. Right over Santa Claus's head there, we're going to go up those steps. And you see through the glasses where all the computers and where they do the playing of the programs. There's the transmitter. Each one cost $1 million. It's about 9 feet tall, about 8 feet thick, about 25 feet long. Inside where he's looking is a bulb that costs $50,000 to replace. How often would you want to replace that bulb? Kevin has come up with a way to get longer life out of that bulb. But you're looking at $1 million piece of equipment. And if you look on down the picture, the second transmitter is down that way. There's Max at one of our generators, 2 of our generators, and then there's a third one right over here. Does anybody have that size generators in your backyard? That's what does our electricity. Transmitter building, again, that's an early picture just to kind of give you a picture of the campus. We built a bathhouse and a tool shed. There's the 2 65,000-liter tanks that the guys built to store our diesel fuel. These wires take the programs out to that box, and then that box sends it to the right antenna. You're looking right underneath the antenna. If you look at me just for a second, what you're looking at really is 2 sets of wires. That's really what the antenna looks like. That's why I mentioned you don't move those antennas, but you can skew the signal 15 degrees 4 times in each direction. So what you're looking at, you're standing right underneath the antenna, and here's really what you're looking at, 2 sets of wires. And from that, we're able to cover literally the entire world. It's kind of this is really why I came. We need some volunteers to go out and change some light bulbs out on the antenna, and some congregations volunteer their elders. I don't know what that means. No, I just want you to see the size of the tower. That's Kevin and one other guy up working in the antenna. 4 towers, 3 curtain antennas. It's taken the gospel to the entire world. That's our chief. We have a regional chief. We took him, and when we went over for the dedication, we took him 2 cows, 2 zebu. I didn't realize that's a valuable thing in Madagascar. If you got 2 zebu, you got something to pull your carts, plow your fields, and meat for your table. He liked the gift that we brought him. Spelling test, we're not leaving till you can pronounce his president's last name. 25 letters. Who can pronounce our president's last name? Caudle. We'll get by with that. I just want you to see the president of Madagascar. His name is Harry. I'll let you pronounce his last name. Just wanted you to see that. We've got a website for each one of our language services. The programs are on there, some written materials on there. The Chinese guys, they've got 2,400 pages per day are being downloaded. 2,400 pages a day from the Chinese website. Here's how I'm going to close. You see Madagascar right there? See Alaska there. Let me share with you what Madagascar does. You ready? There's antenna 1. There's antenna 2. There's antenna 3. Antenna 1, and it doesn't stop right there. It continues. In fact, we're standing in Franklin, Tennessee with a shortwave radio hearing our programming loud and clear. And our guys are crying, of course, as they're hearing their own voices, standing in front of our offices in Franklin. That's antenna 1. There's antenna 2. And there's antenna 3. The entire world is covered every day with the gospel. Does that tickle anybody in the room? That's your ministry. That's your program. That's your 2 stations. Yes, sir.
What do you use to establish the programming that you do? I mean, is there certain parameters that you set, or certain stuff you cover, or?
He's asked about the programming. We do what we call a magazine-type format. You go to a doctor's office and you get a magazine, and with every page, it's a different topic. We're going into areas where people know nothing about Jesus. We don't start in Acts 2. We get to Acts 2. Congregations have a cookies and Kool-Aid to encourage kids to come, and we'll give you a lollipop, and we do some things to attract neighbors to come to our services here. How do you do that on the radio? We do an hour block of programming, and the programs are about 3 to 8 minutes in length. We'll do a few programs to get you to listen. For example, we'll do a few programs into Africa. We'll do a 3 to 5 minute program about malaria. Well, why would we do that? Because that's an issue there. We'll do a 3 to 5 minute program into China about families. Well, why would you do that? Because that's an issue there. Our guys study what's going on in the areas that's going to get their signal, and they prepare some programs to get you to listen. How could I get you 2 guys to listen to my radio station? What would be the hook that would make you listen? What would make teenagers listen? Music. We're not a bebop radio station, but we're not opposed to playing a careful... Would that get y'all's attention with music? Would that do it? We're not a bebop radio station, but we're not opposed to playing a carefully chosen American song that's popular in your country. Well, why in the world would you do that? So you'll keep listening, because right after that, you're going to hear a story about Jesus. You're going to hear the Bible being read. You're going to hear a prayer every Thursday halfway through the program done by the president of World Christian Broadcasting. Little plug. I get to do a program every Thursday about prayer. So we do a few programs to get you to listen. We never want to get top heavy, because we're on the air to tell people about Jesus. We don't start in Acts 2. We get there. So we want to keep that right balance. We want you to attract you and teach you about. Our mission statement says we want to use all kinds of media to introduce people to Jesus and cause them to want to know more. And we'll plug them into a Bible correspondence course or a Bible or other materials that they want. Yes, sir.
How do you promote stations? Like,
How do you promote?
Ground people to go around and say, hey, listen to that.
In some places in the Middle East, we for sure can't have that. So some folks find us by Googling the internet if they have it access. Some folks will find us on the radio, and they'll go to the internet if it's available. In China, we know we have an office in Hong Kong, China. Su Kamin, who preaches for the Wan Chai Church of Christ, will disappear tonight and work with the underground churches. So in China, we know of a large network of house churches. In Russia, we know where all the churches are, and we can promote it that way. So different ways in different places. But with his question, you realize there's some folks we'll never hear from just because of where they live. Folks in the Middle East, they can't contact us. So we just do the best job we can in getting out all kinds of ways to promote us. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the cost of going to solar for Alaska. I mean, I'm assuming that's probably a little more difficult up there because of the day and night.
Yeah,
time frame.
yeah, it would not work in Alaska.
What about
Yeah.
Madagascar?
Yeah.
What would be the cost just to get the amount of electricity you would need to maintain?
Call me tomorrow night because I've got a meeting tomorrow at noon about that very thing. I don't know. Is it a possibility? I don't know. If the Lord wants it, it's a real possibility. So call me tomorrow night. I'll have a better answer for you after my meeting. How about another question? You're doing great. Yes.
How does the diesel fuel get transported to Madagascar?
How did what?
The diesel fuel.
We buy it there. Her question was about diesel fuel. We buy our diesel fuel there in Madagascar. They deliver every 3.5 weeks. So I got a $25,000 bill every time they make a delivery. And this month they delivered twice. I'm budgeted for one. So I got a $25,000 gas bill to pay by the end of the month. Where's it going to come from? We were talking to the Lord about that. But we buy our diesel fuel there. I got 2 minutes left. Questions? These are your stations. Do you feel good about them? They're your stations, and we're blanketing literally the entire world every day with the good news about Jesus. 35 hours, and then 2 more hours from Voice of Hope. What's next? We'll turn the Portuguese programming on hopefully by September, October. When you're doing an hour block of 3 to 5 minute length programs, it takes quite a few programs. So our guy Homaloo is getting programs ready and in the can. So we think we'll be ready to go September, October there. What's next? Can I tell them? We haven't even announced this yet. I visited with a gentleman on Friday who wants to give me a check to begin Korean programming. The only thing he can't keep out of his country is a shortwave radio signal. Would you please be prayerful? Could be some doors opening up in Korea. Who knows? Depending on which newscast you listen to. But could it be that the timing is now for us to get the gospel all over North and South Korea? Be prayerful. That's where we're headed next.
Grandview supports but one international mission function. And this is it. Several times, Andy has said, this is your, well, this is our.
Yep.
As you make your contributions week over week, a portion of every one of those dollars comes up to support this effort. I hope that through the presentation that Andy has made, that you have a deeper appreciation for the magnitude of the support.
There's materials on the back table. If you'd like to have any of those maps, please help yourself, and I'll be tickled to receive your questions, and Alan will answer all the questions. I'll be glad to receive the questions. Thank y'all so much.